Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Sales Uncharted. And I have one simple promise that I make to all my B2B seller listeners. We are going to find someone that is very unique, that is not going to come in here and tell us how to say this, sell better, how to have better technique, but is going to talk more about what selling is, what that function means. And actually, I'm really excited to have Shahjad Khan. I bumped into Shahjad because someone said to me that have a look at this individual, he's doing something very interesting. And I says, okay, I know a lot of people who do interesting things, but I was very intrigued. So I bump in, I actually realized that he is busy building out what he calls a network of bright, smart, intellectually ambitious people, salespeople, frankly. And he created a little, let's put it this way, network of individuals called INDOSALES. So I was really intrigued. And as I've watched and as I've known him for the last few months, I've actually seen him. And I think, Shahjad, correct me if I'm wrong, you've crossed 6,000 people that are part of your WhatsApp family, correct?
Yep, as we speak, 6,000, India's largest.
India's largest. That is why he earned the right to be here, because I think there's an opportunity for you to actually listen to someone who cares about the function, who's building his own personal career in sales, while at the same time, I can actually say, touching the lives of thousands of people who also want to be better at selling. Shahjad, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Deepak, and I'm glad that we got connected through one of our mutual friend, and really excited and looking forward to our conversation here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Shahjad, let's start off with the most simple things in life, sir, right? Now, I was looking at your background. You are an engineer by academic training. You
Yep.
now end into sales. What exactly happened for engineering to lose you? Why did you pick sales over engineering?
Okay, so that's an interesting story, or I would say question that most of the people ask. And so academically, I was a great engineer, almost close to 9 CGPA is what I was getting academically in engineering, and I
Yeah.
could have been a great engineer. But then by the time I was doing my second year or third year, I understood that uh, business part of it, sales part of it, all these things are more fascinating to me rather than the technical aspects of engineering. And my elder brother was into sales also, so I saw him growing up the ladder, climbing up the stairs. He's 4 years elder to me. So by the time I finished my engineering, I saw him growing the corporate ladder and money, and learning, meeting great people. So by second third year, it was very clear to me that I want to do something similar, but the question was that where's the money? And surprisingly, all my friends who were getting placed in all these great tech startups and companies were getting huge packages. And I was little intrigued by understanding that, okay, all right, somebody is paying them so much money, but what's the reason behind it? Then I understood that tech as a sector or as a business itself is a little something which attracts people, and it is expensive. So I thought, okay, if somebody is building tech, there's somebody who might be selling this expensive product. Yeah, what about that? So that's how I figured out, okay, there's a good paying profession, there's a nice profession which you can build your life on. And I have seen people after the my research that they have grown up all the way to CEOs of the organization by being a great sales leaders in B2B. So that's how it started.
No, I like that. I really like that. Now, at the same time, I read one of your posts and you actually said that, hey, ladies and gentlemen, here's the truth. The truth is that if you're a fresh software development engineer, you are going to get 3x more than what you would get if you were to leave college and become a salesperson. Now, after having tasted blood, Shahzad, you've been in sales for more than, I would say, what, 10 years now, Shahzad? You've been in sales?
Almost.
Almost. If you were to go backwards 10 years now, would you still say that sales has been satisfying? Or would you say that, maybe I might have tried software engineering and see if that more money would have helped me or not?
No, touchwood, I have never regretted any decisions that I have taken ever in my life.
Bravo.
And I would say I would still choose this profession over any other profession. And yeah, yeah, obviously what you said is something which I posted, saying that any day you start, the tech guys will always have an higher edge because of the industry standards. And that's what lot of people like me are being very vocal about this, that sales needs to be a career. It needs to have a good starting package so that more talented people come into this, experience this, and that's how you build great organization and great sales engine. Now imagine if the starting package itself is not so lucrative to attract great talents. Eventually, let's just say 20 years down the lane, 30 years down the lane, you'll not have great people to sell it, to build your and run your organizations. So
I, I,
that's what
I
I
wouldn't
have been vocal about.
I wouldn't be. I would not challenge you on that. And if there's one reality, right? At the end of the day, Shahzad, we can build the great products, but if we cannot sell the great products, then what are we doing? And that also is the truth of it, right? If you look around us, invention is one thing, but commercialization is completely different. And I've actually come to the simple honest that the great thinkers, the great engineers, have to be great sellers to survive. If they cannot make that transition, then they need to find someone who can do it for them. So you have great ideas, you have great startups, but most of them will run out because of two things. They run out
I
of
would like,
cash, and Shahzad,
yep.
they can't sell.
I
Yeah,
would
go
like,
ahead.
I think of Steve Jobs, a good combination of engineering plus sales. I would any given day, he was a very great innovator, he was a great engineer. But look at his sales skills, the when he used to go onto the stage, when he used to, launch any product. Who does that?
Yeah. And that combination is what actually proves your point, right? And I also look at it this way. A lot of people think, but if you have done 10 years in sales and if you're still smiling at the end of 10 years, and you can also agree with me, Shahzad, it is one of the most toughest, most demanding roles ever. I've always told people that, when people think of salesperson, right? And Shahzad, you and I both come from an Indian background, right? So Indian subcontinent. Our parents are always watching over us. You are absolutely correct. How many parents are looking into the cradle and looking at the child and saying, "Oh wow, I would like my son to become a salesperson," right? They're always talking about engineers, doctors. So I am always happy to bring along what I call people that break the mold, right? Because a lot of people don't understand cultural background, demands from the parents, demands from family matter a lot. And to break through from that mold to be an individual is very, very, very important. That's one of the reasons why I make sure that on my podcast I bring people with different backgrounds, different way of perspective. Now let's keep moving on, so because I'm really enjoying this, right? Given that I've already gone through your posts and stuff, there's one post that I really liked of yours. You said, "When you're winning, stay quiet. When you're losing, don't quit." She said, "I really think that this is a very important line. It must come from something that you've seen or you experienced. For the listeners out there, tell me what this line is, and if this line is related to an incident, what exactly did that incident teach you?"
So see, I still don't have much gray hairs, but in the short span of time, what I have seen that you might be a CBO, you might be a CRO, you might be VP of sales, you might have 100 reportees, reporting to you. You might have great managers. When you're winning, matlab, don't let those things get into your head that oh my god, I have made it. I'm the VP of sales. I have developed an engine of 100 million ARR and stuffs like that. Stay calm, stay happy, stay quiet. Matlab, thank god, thank your parents, and keep moving forward. Why? Because in this world of AI era, I have seen my mentors who might be in their late 50s, or let's just say late 40s, getting laid off overnight over an email.
Yeah,
Nothing sticks around. Yeah.
yeah,
And at the same time, I have seen people who were struggling to come in front of camera, or let's just say speak on stage, are VPs of sales in great organizations and startups today. So and the reason why they were there, because they never quit, or they never gave up on this profession. So
agreed.
my fundamentals are very always simple, that keep your head down and keep working, keep the environment positive around you, don't take anything for granted, and don't let anything get over your head.
Shazad, I think I really want to double into this one because there are a lot of people who are missing the very powerful point you're making here. You spoke in between on those, right? You didn't use fancy words, but I'm going to try to label some of them. Tell me if I'm off. When you're winning, you stay quiet. You're showing humility. You're also showing that you understand there's a bigger ecosystem that supports you, helps you, elevate you. And to me, this is very powerful because Shazad, you don't have the gray hair, but I had the gray hair and then I lost them also, right? But I'll tell you what, a lot of people at your age would not have this profound insight for a very simple reason. You need to experience agony, pain, and misery at some point. And I'm not wishing that on anyone. I've had a situation where I did lose my job. We are now today living in an AI infused world where salespeople are being told, you need to do something different or AI is going to take your job. And we'll talk about that later further as well, right? So that I liked your advice for one simple reason. When you're going up and you allow people and you recognize people around you, when you're coming down, which eventually always happens in some context, I'm not saying I wish upon it, it does. You will be surprised how much energy you will get from those very people that you were seeking support from or acknowledging because they will watch and they will wish you well. No one wants to pull you down. When they see you fall, they will come to help you rise up. And I want people to think about those words and that point that you made there. And now, when you talk about not quitting, Shirad, this is very powerful. In sales, you are going to get a no and a no and a no. Someone once asked me, how many no's can one possibly get? I said, well, that's a function of your win rate, right? And he said, let's assume my win rate is 20. I said, if 20%, I said, if your win rate is 20%, then you need to be ready for four no's, one yes, four no's. He says, yeah, I've had seven already. I says, you see, a problem is you look at this mathematically. That's not how it works. You may actually have 20 no's. Maybe it'll
True.
change later, but the fact is you got to stay and stay and stay. Go ahead, Shahzad,
last
back to you.
week last week I was training some SDRs fresh out of college, grade B schools, and I told them very simple logic. When you're starting to cold call people, cold email people, or doing any deal, don't chase yes, because yes are exceptions. Normalize no's. Why? Because that is something
Smart.
that you will get through and through. If you start chasing yes, and that's an exception in sales, no matter how much great win rate you have, end of the day, it might be 20%, 30%, and if you're a god level salesperson, maybe 40, 50%. But
Yeah.
again, as I said, you have to normalize no, you have to get used to that.
So when we talk about normalizing no, and I know this is easier said than done, some salespeople are able to normalize that. In fact, I used to tell people that your success rate is actually the number of no's you have to take and accept. When you have that right mindset and also recovery, and we're going to talk that a bit more also, right? So let me challenge you with another question, please, because I like reading your posts. I really think that they're very well written. In fact, I would recommend anyone on the call, it's not me suggesting, but I would say keep an eye on this individual. He writes very well. If he gets the right support, I would personally be the most excited to see him getting LinkedIn top voice. And in fact, Shazad, if you do not have that goal in your mind, here I am sending you good vibes. Work on that. I think your posts are valuable. They are never preachy. They come from a place of feeling. You feel something you want to share. Now let's talk about that. You said again something very interesting, and I just my eyes catched it. Quota gets you a seat at the table. It doesn't earn you the manager role. Let's talk about that, because there are many people, and particularly outside of the US, I've noticed a lot of people consider success in life as being a people manager or a senior executive. I really want to understand. And how do you translate that quote? What was the thought process behind it? And what was the message you wanted to share with the world?
There was may he rest in peace, a great coach called Bill Campbell, and he was the coach for Steve Jobs, founders of Google. He was the CEO of Intuit, and he used to say that, you know it's always your people first, then comes rest of the things. Today what I see people making a mistake, and that's why a lot of sales culture or sales team end up getting burned out or zoned out after certain time, is that you give me a quota, I achieve 100%, 150%. Next time I'm coming and telling you, hey Deepak, I think I deserve a team now.
Yeah.
There are chances that your second guy or the third person might be a much better empathetic, more people oriented, more calm, and a person who actually gets along with people, who can
Yes.
lead, who can glue up and stitch up the people together, and lead them from the front. So this is something, especially in India, which I have seen, that people don't go through a formal training of being a good manager, don't go through a formal understanding of what empathy is, what leadership is, how to communicate constructive feedback without offending people.
Without offending people.
Yep.
Correct.
So I feel people lack those things majorly, especially I feel in Indian sales ecosystem. And just because you have hit quota, great, you're a great lone wolf. I would say, speak about how should I increase my more variable so that you give me more quota and I achieve more and I make more money. Because managing people and doing sales, I would say it's completely two different skills. But again, that doesn't mean that if somebody is not hitting quota, you promote them as manager. No, that's a complete no. But that simply doesn't mean that anybody who attains more than 100% should be immediately promoted as a manager.
No, no. Again, for the listeners out there, I think this is a very profound moment of truth here, right? Here is how I would interpret what you said, Cesar, and correct me. I think you are acknowledging everyone has a bias and they think that the ultimate pinnacle of success is being a leader of people. We get that, we respect that. But you're in the sales function. In the sales function, you being a lone wolf is something that is, yes, great. But when we say lone wolf, it doesn't mean that to the antithesis of a lone wolf is to be a people manager. You don't need to. You can still be a good team player as well, because teams ultimately work together. Sales leadership is something interesting, but there's a really catchy thing you said that I really want to call out. We are not saying that that you need to look at temperament only to make success. At the end of the day, salespeople will follow someone who they can learn from and who they also respect. And whether you like it or not, salespeople will respect the guy that keeps everyone together. As Swachhata, you call it the glue. But they will be also very, very happy to have someone who's made their quota consistently, are considered very good at what they do, and now are leading them. This way, you get everything in that package. Now, Shahzad, let me ask a question, because we also spoke about there's people don't people don't understand what it means to be a manager. They need to be educated. They need to get some sort of training, grinding in it. There's some people who tell me that sales people are born, Deepak. They can never be made. Do you have a philosophy on that? Do you have a position on that?
Anyone can be taught anything, I feel, in life, but still there are certain aspects. I'll not deny the quote what you said completely. There are certain aspects which I agree to. For an example, if you have too much of ego, yeah, and if you do not have a smiling face,
Yeah.
yeah, and let's just say if you don't like speaking to people, these are certain things I feel that you are brought up with. And if you do not like these few things, probably sales is not a personality wise fit for you.
You know, Shahzad, I cannot tell you how happy you made me. This is a very important point. This is a question which I call as a gray question, right? Because you're right. And this is something I learned from my boss one day. When we were discussing my ascension to VP, he told me to my face, Shahzad, and I am grateful he did that. He said to me, here's what makes me hesitant, Deepak, about putting your name forward as VP. And I said, please tell me. He said, you are still known as the comedian, the man who makes people happy. He says, you've been successful till now, but the vice presidency cannot go to a person whose leading moniker is smart, but very jovial, someone who keeps the team together, but is always the funny guy. He said, the funny guy is not what we're looking for at VP level. We were looking for a funny guy when you were younger, when you were at the lower rungs, because we wanted to bring some levity, some happiness to the organization. But at VP level, happiness is there, is part of the package. We respect you for that. But we now need to be very confident that this person understands the seriousness of the role given to him. And I actually realized I was born with an attribute, to put it in your words, which was very positive, is that I like to help people grow. I like people to do right. I did not have the gift of talking very well. In fact, I was born with a speech defect. I've had to work with an external person to fix that defect, Shahzad, because right at the end of the day, Shahzad, you're spot on. You and I have seen people in wheelchairs selling and doing a fantastic job. You and I have seen people, have to wear glasses because if they take them off, they're visually impaired. They're doing a great job. So it's not about that. But you're right. If you're born with a DNA that is not going to allow you to see the big picture, not allow you to operate with integrity, not allow you to operate with a pace, and also some other things, like you said, right? Then you are going to be in trouble. So you may not be born for sales. You can be treated for sales. But if you have certain negative inefficiencies, you'll be
Yep,
slow in
yep,
sales.
yep.
I absolutely align with you on that. Now, let's keep digging in here, because you, my friend, have left this really what I call uh, breadcrumbs in your LinkedIn post that I really have enjoyed reading. You have written that best salespeople listen more than they talk, right? What makes this skill so important in your POV, in your point of view? And why do you think so many salespeople struggle with it? And I'll admit right now, up front, I struggle with it even today. Shazad, this is one of those DNA things. I was born, as my mother said, screaming. Bugger will die screaming, looks like it also. Over to you, sir.
No,
Listen
so
more than they
I'm
talk.
also a talkative person by birth, and that's something which I have. There's a sticky over here as I'm speaking to you. Speak slow, be calm. Yeah, so that's something even I fight a lot with. But what I try to say by that, you speak less, hear more, is that do active listening. Let's just say if I'm
Mm.
talking to Deepak right now, I'm listening to Deepak, I'm analyzing it, and I'm replying it. Don't think about, how does my next question in medic or medpic looks like. Have I cleared the band questions, with Deepak or not? So don't think about the next question. Rather, just listen what you have asked the question. Let the person answer, understand what it is, and go a deeper level. But don't live on a surface level discovery. Do a deeper level discovery, and that you will be able to do only when you do active listening, or you're listening and not thinking about what's the next question I should ask, or you are less worried about that. I'll tell you this, I have this, I have that. Rather than that, just be present, be there at that moment when you're speaking to anybody, whether in
Yes.
professional or personal life.
To the people on the call, if there's anyone on this who's less than 3 to 4 years in sales, if you get this point that Shahzad is making, bedded down very fast, very quick, I would argue, Shahzad, this is the single biggest criteria or deliverable. You get this right, you'll make more money than anyone else in sales. People will usually fail because they are not actively listening. And Shahzad, you're spot on. One of the biggest things that I was looking in my research was, Shahzad, is that salespeople 99% of the time when doing discovery are actually trying to think, what's the next question will he ask me? What's the next step? My gosh, I shouldn't forget my script. And I think Shahzad's point is very valuable. Yes, we all look at scripts. We all want to be structured. But listen in the moment. Don't focus so far off that you start thinking about the second question, because Shahzad, that's what happens. Novices always do that, whether you like it or not. And particularly when you are using scripting as a methodology, you have 9 questions you need to do. You're already thinking about question 2, 3, 4. Whereas what Shahzad is saying, if I understand you, Shahzad, is listen carefully, because you might be surprised that in that answer he may have answered question 2, question 3 already, and now you're forcing yourself to go to question 2, in my opinion, Shahzad, when I sit and listen to calls, when I'm analyzing calls for my customers and stuff, the single biggest tragedy during discovery is, believe it or not, it's fatigue that you cause to the poor person by repeating the question unnecessarily because he actually answered it. And even if he answered it only 75%, then your second question needs to zoom into the remaining 25%, not go back and ask him, how do you deal with humans? When he's already told you that I am a big lover of humanity, you should zoom in to say, who do you like the most? Women, men, or babies, or children? Then your question is getting, but people don't optimize the question because they're not listening.
True.
Another thing that I really want to just call out, Shahzad, is that the word that you use is active listening. And a lot of people tell me, but I'm actively listening. I think what you also said is active thought management in the process also. You have your 2:1 ratio. You are listening, absorb, focus on what you're hearing. Don't focus on what do you want to hear in the next question. And I think that's where the problem occurs. That was a great conversation here. That I really like that. Shahzad, I'm going to pivot on this. You have been very vocal about leadership. You have been very vocal about nurturing new talent. In your experience, you've met tons of people along the way. You have also noticed other. What are the 2 signs that you would look and tell me is a sign of a bad sales manager? And those 2 signs, what would you say can a sales manager listening right now do to mitigate those?
Two bad signs of a sales manager you're talking about, right?
Yes. Yep.
Mhm. One, I would say being disrespectful when you're talking. See,
Mhm.
being direct and being disrespectful, people don't understand. I have seen. Yeah, I mean, there's a
I'm
very
with you.
thin line between that. When you're doing a review, you can ask people why, how, and what. You cannot go on to the tell that you are a loser. You're getting my
It's,
point. So I feel
yeah,
first point is
crossing that
that
boundary when.
yep, yep. One is that being disrespectful. You because see, people work for people. Let me be very clear. You being disrespectful to people, people stop feeling for you, people stop working for you. And if your team and people are not looking up to you and working along the sides of you, you can never be a manager. And if you're not a good manager, you will never become a great leader. Number one, again, don't be disrespectful. Second thing, I think bad sign of a bad manager in sales will be doing false promises to team. I have
Mm.
seen. I see people, talking that, hey, you know what? You just get me this deal. Probably we will do this. We will do that. There's an AOP. There's a quarterly quota. There is a quarterly incentive. Help understand that person, how that person can move the deal, get better every day, every week, every quarter, and then plan the career ahead, rather than being all big talks and loud mouths about I will do this for you, I'll do that for you. That creates a false environment around the team. So I would say be very real, be empathetic, real, and direct to your team, and don't be
Yeah.
disrespectful.
No, I respect that. In fact, very interesting approach that you took there, right? I was thinking that you're most likely going to fall into the commonality type of things, but I really like those 2 points you made there. In your response, you also kind of differentiated between manager and leader. And Shahzad, what I really try to remind people is that you're a manager. People tell me, so how do I become a better manager or a leader? So the first question I ask is, what's the difference between manager and leader? Right? So
According
people
to
give me
me.
some yeah. No. I'm just telling you what I've heard, and people give me lots of wisdom on what's the difference. I think hidden in what you said is actually the answer right there. when you are a manager and when you start doing these two or three things, by default your followers will fall in line, and great followers are going to give you that leadership sticker that you're looking for. As a manager, you are what I call in a coercive relationship. You report to people, you dictate their salary, therefore people have to fall in line. They will proudly call you manager, but will they ever call you a leader? Will they ever follow you to that cliff and jump off with you? No, they won't. And to me, the 2 points you made, and I really want to emphasize this to the people listening in, you didn't talk about better forecasting. You didn't talk about telling salespeople to, not sit at their desk and do more work outside and stuff like that. You brought in two very human aspects to it. And I think that if people were to follow on those two human aspects, that advice you gave, they will suddenly earn that little title of leader. Because there is no company calls you leader. People give you a hierarchical title, yeah, either manager, sales manager, this, and so on, so on. Leadership is earned, and I think following those two pieces of advice you gave is the best way to earn that.
So
Shahzad,
I
let's
read
dial.
something very, very recently and very beautiful to conclude this segment is that,
Yeah, yeah,
your
absolutely.
title makes you a manager, but it's your people who makes you a leader. So I think if people understand that line, I think they are sorted.
I think, and those 2 points you made actually allow people to understand. You can easily take back control. A sales manager who wants to become a leader doesn't have to stand up and say, "Call me leader." He simply has to change his behavior. And those 2 points you raise is a great way. When your behavior changes, it might take some time because, Steve Jobs said it once, and I think he was very smart when he said something about change. He said, "Got to understand, change is like a tanker of oil. It takes a mile or 2 miles to turn around, also sometimes. So just understand it takes time, it takes effort. I like that. Now let's talk about something that's going to, I would say, make us better, or as some people say, kill all salespeople, AI. So when we talk about AI in sales, there's a massive amount of hype, right, Shahzad? You're working in a startup, so you kind of understand how fast and how quickly people move, and that if AI is not part of your planning, you're in trouble. A lot of salespeople are using AI, right? Now we are sitting in 2026, and now we're going to move into 2027 in a few months. And you must be thinking, why is he talking about 2027 already? Because time flies. So here's the question. I've heard people tell me AI is noise. Then I've heard people say AI is not a threat. Then I've heard people say AI is going to take everyone's job. I'm going to ask you a very common open question. What do you think of AI? How do you use AI? And where do you think AI is going to take salespeople? And do you consider it a threat, or do you consider it a boon?
No, I would definitely say any technology that comes with time will definitely help humans, will help that particular professional.
Yeah.
Imagine doing this podcast 10 years, 20 years back. Either you would have to taken a flight from US to India, or you would have made me flown from India to US. And imagine so much
To
hassle we
answer
would
your
have.
question, there will be no podcast. It will be most later. I wrote an email. I got an email and I flashed the email to everyone. Hey, and now you're going to
Correct.
tell me, assume there's no email, then I would have sent you a postcard. You would send me a
Postcard.
postcard. But
So
back to you.
imagine if that you would have not got used to postcard, followed by an email, followed by using a technology like this where we are able to connect. Yeah. So I feel whether AI takes jobs or not, I'm not getting into that particular part of the thing, because I would say no job is permanent and no job is granted. So that changes with years and generations to and decades
Sure.
to come. But yeah, definitely, I would suggest if AI is helping people to become more productive in their work, more creative in their work, help them do things much faster. Definitely, you should be doing something else. Imagine, let's just say if I have to do a forecasting which might take me 6-7 hours of going through an Excel sheet. I download that Excel sheet, put it in any kind of LLM, or let's just say any kind of AI tool, and I give the prompt that I'm looking for these. I'm looking for certain kind of patterns, which will help me close more, or my team close
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
I am saving 6 hours of that, that burden, or let's just say headache, to go through numbers and all those stuff. So if that is helping me to, achieve my goal faster, better, why should you even give a second thought about adopting it?
So you therefore have avoided sticking your neck out, but at the same time, I think you did stick your neck out. At the end of the day, it's all going to come down to the human capability of enriching themselves. If you
True.
want to be good at sales, at some point you'll have to adopt AI. So AI is not going to take your job. Your inability to not adopt and go with the flow is going to take your job, whether it's AI or anything else. As you said, technology changes. And if
I
someone
would
keeps
not
telling
say
you that,
I would not say कि it will take away your job, but I would just say you might be you might matlab, when there's a way of doing things faster, why do you want to do it slow, is what I would say.
why do you want to do it slow? And the reality is that if you're going to do it slow, you're going to stick out very fast, very quick. and you are going to, now I want to be cautious. I'm going to respect your position on that one because I agree. I've always said to people, and I'll be very cruel when I say this, and I'll repeat it again, Shahzad, and you may not agree with it. I'm not going to ask for a vote, but Shahzad, if a sales manager in the future is going to say that he only needs 8 people out of 10, he most likely is going to get rid of those 2 people that are actually not going with the flow. That is my suspicion. Two outliers in the past used to be based on behavior and attitude. Now I think that is going to be very interesting because your behavior attitude is going to be magnified the way you use AI in it. So AI is going to make you a better person. You're going to learn faster. You're going to do things that you could not do before. You could look at things that you would not have thought about, right? You're permanently now looking things as a devil's advocate. My only caution to people on the call is that whether you like it or not, when the time will come to cut, which is going to happen, irrespective, because every technological, remember in the 80s and 90s, Shahzad, we went through automation, right? There were tons of companies who were unicorns who built out all these processes and all these tools, right? And we had a shaking. A lot of process people lost their jobs, a lot of sales people got realigned. I think this is just one of those natural progressions. The difference this time, though, is what used to happen in decades is now happening literally in a few years. And that is the only element that I would say is the most surprising one for me. The smart salespeople will survive this. I agree with you because they know fundamentally how to adapt, how to change, and how to incorporate into their. My caution is to those salespeople who still look at AI as one of those threats, as you call it, or it's a weapon of choice. Build your skill sets, wrap it around it. AI doesn't need to replace your intelligence, it can augment intelligence. That's the approach I would take. So AI, I love that conversation. Now, let me tell you, if I would ask you to advice given to a 21-year-old coming into the sales arena today, what do you think they should be doing that can help them get better at what they're doing? In the old days, we used to say one of the essential skills is 100 dials per day, correct? And I'm very convinced that you'll still have to do 100 dials in the future. Also, you can still use AI to, how do you say, push things up. But do you ever see a situation where you feel that these common skills of cold calling, the common skills of chasing, finding people, positioning, will be impacted with AI?
So two questions, I think, here. What I'll give it to a 21-year-old guy, and the second question is that how the AI will help
Yeah.
people to reach out.
How does it help with some of the
Yeah,
work
yeah,
that
yeah. So
you and I
I'll answer
would
the second.
consider to do?
I'll answer the second question first.
Hmm.
You either reach out to people in person, or you reach out to them either through social media or through a call.
Yeah.
So I don't see a way of eliminating just because AI is there, cold calling, cold emailing, LinkedIn DMs, or going to events, or doing a gate crash. So I don't
Yeah.
think those conventional things will ever go away in sales. Maybe it might become less and less over a period of time because buyers will get more educated with their search, that which tool
With
I'm looking
yeah.
for or what exactly I need. So your content, your social media presence, your AEO, your GEO, your SEO will play very more important role maybe in
Important.
the
Yeah.
upcoming days. But let's just say if you're talking about enterprise sales, Deepak, let's be very honest. Nobody is going to buy an enterprise solution or invest millions of dollars saying that, hey, my AI gave me that, you are the best solution and I should go ahead with you. So to reach
Agreed.
out to people, I would say that, cold calling, cold emailing, and the conventional way will never go away. But again, my manager doesn't have to listen to my hundreds of cold call sitting across 6 8 hours and telling me what is good, what is bad. AI will be able to tell me after every call that,
Correct.
Shazad, you did this good, you made this mistake. I'll not have to take a printout or send forward my emails to my manager and say, boss, please review it.
Please
They,
review.
please review, and then manager is reading that 200 lines or 300 lines of emails and telling what is good, what is bad. So I think the AI will become let's just say a helping hand to those salespeople to become much better at these crafts. And coming to your first question, to one 21-year-old, I would say, have fun first. Matlab, understand a little bit about what you're
Yeah.
getting into. You're just
Yeah.
21. Spend at least the first 2 years understanding what you want to do, what you don't want to do. And I'm being very cautious here while speaking to you, because how sales is projected on various different social media is that you wear a blazer, you do a handshake, you open bottles of champagne, and then you are flying,
Sell.
driving all those sports cars. It's all, I don't know who made those kind of assumptions about sales. Sales is a very, very tough, very, very thankless kind of a
Agreed.
profession and needs very thick
Agreed.
skin. So people, a lot of young folks comes with that, there's a background music playing in the song, I'll become, I'll make some crazy ass money out of sales. It will happen over a period of time, but you'll have to survive those years in order to reach there. So, and a lot of people then get into sales, don't figure out their career, 5, 6, 7 years, they again go back to some different professions. So I would suggest anybody who's 21 entering into sales, first 2 years, first figure out whether this is your cup of tea or not.
Right. Now, Shahzad, again, so much good stuff in there, right? And I always tell people that, your formative years are the most important. I also would argue that bringing in a lot of AI in the formative years sounds cool. The reality is that there's some things that you have to learn by sheer hard work. And I do like your point. Yes, the quantum may change, but a cold call is still a cold call. Now, you can use an automated dialer to get the person on the line. Now, you can be bold enough to also say, let's get the first level also done by an AI. But a novice who's going to plan that way is going to find themselves building a foundation which is very weak, because you're spot on. So that I would actually argue that once this AI craze is gone in a year or two or whatever, right? People are going to actually value those salespeople that never lost the humanity along the way. You are absolutely right. My grandfather used to call B2B as belly to belly selling. And I used to not understand what he meant by that, but finally I understood it. It's human interface, particularly at the enterprise level. I don't think we're going to ever be able to outsource that. Will the count of people change who do that function? Yeah, maybe potentially, but we'll
Maybe, yeah.
keep an eye on that. I'm sure both of us are intrigued what the future will unfold. Sir, you also wrote in one of your posts, which I really, really thought was very powerful. You kind of made a challenge to companies out there. You said that most companies train and promote their best people for someone else to then hire. And I said, wait a minute, this guy's got me. I had to read further. And you actually made a clean argument that, guys, you're not looking at your salaries. You don't know how to get things to promote it. You are doing a lot of weird stuff and you're preparing your people who then get poached by other people. Tell me exactly what was the thought process. And do you think that companies have understood the salary game, or are they still playing around?
Let's just say I bring somebody at, let's just say, X dollars, and my current person in the same role in the same organization who has grown up the ladder is at 0.5x of the dollars.
Got it. Yes.
Now the person who has stayed here, either you get that person's salary corrected over a period of time, or the person you're bringing from external needs to be matched with a band or a slab, what I call it as, based on whether
Which,
you are AE1, AE2, senior manager, manager, director, VP, or CBO. You cannot have two managers in the same team with, let's just say, 20 LPA and other one 40 LPA with carrying
yeah.
same quota. So I have seen that mistakes happening a lot of time. I'll give you one more example where people go wrong. You have an SDR. That SDR was at 6 LPA. Now this SDR got promoted, became an AE, and that person, after standard 30-40% hike, which happens in India, especially at the start of the career, reaches to a CTC of, let's just say, 7-8 LPA and becomes an AE. You get an external AE from outside straight away at 15 LPA,
15 LPA. Yeah.
doing exact same work with the same quota. You internally create a rift between your organization inside your team, and the guy who's getting less pay will definitely start looking out for a better opportunity. So what you did, essentially, you got an SDR, you trained them, you made them a great SDR, you promoted them to an AE, you gave them a little bit of training, and by the time you got a new person, this guy has already found out two better opportunities, out in the world.
Out in. So, Shahzad, again, a lot that you said there, right? And I think what you're talking about is not just only something that happened in sales, right? In general, HR departments, recruiters, and managers make this common mistake. And I think it's very important for us to acknowledge that. And I think that in a post COVID world, what I've realized as I look at the new people coming into sales and they approach things, they will actually leave you very fast, very quick if they see this delta. Because in the old days, it used to be that if I do the hard work in 3, 4 years, I'll easily catch up, right? But the reality also is that this construct of loyalty has been broken very hard by companies. You and I are now, I come from an era where a company would proudly bring you on board and then proudly tell you, you work hard, you can stay with us for the rest of your life. I don't think there's any company that uses words like that anymore. So the salary is the only mechanism for which a company can actually show to the person that they genuinely care, because salary is ultimately the only thing that matters. And I know a lot of people tell me, no, 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 happiness is not salary only. Here's the bad news, sir. After 3 years of happiness, you will ultimately realize that I could have had more happiness because they were paying someone higher than me doing the same job. So immediately that illusion is gone. So now look at the research which typically says money is not the topmost reason for why people leave an organization. Watch out. There's a line at the bottom, all else being equal. And the reality is, what all else is being equal? If my colleague is earning more than me doing the same job, what is there that is equal then? What, in the same band, in the same role, in the same title, therefore you're both equal. So now what is the difference? And I ultimately realized, and it took me a long time to realize how big an issue this actually is, not just in sales, but all over the place. But Shazad, let's keep moving in a positive direction, right? Here's another one of your posts that I really, really thought was really cool. And I'm going to put you in a spot now. You said honesty in corporate life is a trap. A lot of people don't want the truth. They want validation. Ta-da! I read that and I lean forward. I said, I think I know where he's going, but I really want to give him an opportunity to explain this. So I'm a sales rep sitting in front of a CEO who is saying something, and instead of saying yes sir, I now say the truth. How can I be smart without being dishonest? That's the thing that came to my mind. So tell me a bit about this post and what you were thinking.
Again, that was a very straightforward post which I learned over a period of time about, in corporate you just don't have to thrive, you have to also survive. And there are few things, aspects of it, maybe we will talk about it later. Let's focus on the sales aspect.
Yeah.
uh, what I would say that, it's not just about what you say, it's also there's a lot about how you say it. So let's be very careful when you're talking to an executive. Be very careful when you're talking to, the CXOs of the organization when you're dealing with, especially when you're early in your career. There's a way of putting across stuff. There is a timing when you should be speaking about it. So that's what even I have learned. I see. I come from a defense background. My dad has served the nation for 38 years, and we follow in Indian Air Force stuff. You have to be very straightforward. You have to be very honest. You have to be very direct. And when I got into corporate, I understood that few of these things are actually backfiring me. Yeah, which humanly, if you'll ask me, or if you look it from an outside world, you'll be like, man, he's telling the truth, he's being direct, you should reward him. But that's not how simple the world is. uh, so I would say, learn that art of communicating your feedback, your feelings, or if you're disagreeing to something, there's a way of putting it across. Learn that over a period of time. I learned it the hard way.
Shazad, two questions. One a very personal one. As the child of someone who served the nation and who's been in the Air Force, did you by any chance ever get to Jodhpur? Because it has one of the largest Air Force bases in India, and that's my hometown.
No, I have not been that part of the country yet.
Okay, good. So please make sure that you do go spend some money there. That's my hometown. And
Okay.
most Air Force kiddos that I meet, typically I've been very lucky. Most of the Air Force guys have actually had been posted to Jodhpur because of their parents or whatever, right? Because of Jodhpur Air Force Base. So I was curious. I had to drop that into my podcast because I'm a huge Jodhpur fan, right? Hometown is always matters to people. Second question for you, which is, well, like I said, more of an observation, right? It's not a question. Shazad, do you know? Here's the funny thing. I left sales because I actually got exhausted having to act in a dishonest way, which is I can see patently that what we are saying or doing is wrong for the customer, or that the customer is barking up the wrong tree. And I said it a few times, and customers reacted to it because I was doing it a very sharp way, the way that you're saying not to do that, right? Shazad, here's some advice I want to give to everyone on the call. If you cannot do things in a smart way, and you're not able to shield a customer or your intent using the right language, you will find yourself in a predicament. People will take your advice as long as you give it the right way. And unfortunately for me, I was staying very to their face, to the point where a sales to the point where my buyer would think that I am actually being rude, but my intent was not to be rude. So this is a very powerful message I want to share. And it's actually the single biggest reason why I actually exited from a sales function to go into sales operations. I still support salespeople, but I got away from a client interfacing because I realized my ability to dial down what they were trying to say or do was beyond my capacity. It was also causing me a lot of conflict. It's a very powerful thing I'm sharing. A lot of people don't know that, but I wanted to share that. And I'm not saying to people that therefore you must always be honest. What I'm saying is that you need to figure this out very early in your careers based on what Shazad just said. Because if you do not know how to navigate that, you will find yourself in conflict. And in my case, I could not resolve that conflict, Shazad. So I think I'm not saying that therefore, if your value system and your customer's value system doesn't right, leave. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you need to make a call. I left because the change required of me was too much. Rightly, wrongly, right? Let's leave it at that. Now, Siddharth, I'm going to start wrapping up. What I want to do is I want to make this a bit personal with you, right? Now, let's assume for a second that I found a magical remote control that if I point at you and I click, you can travel back in time. You're now restarting your career journey in sales, right? You're going to walk up to your desk, cheery, bushy tail, bright eyes, ready to start. But at the same time, you are smart to remember your journey. For some reason, the remote control allows you to remember where you are while you're back at age 21. From those memories that you remember, what's that one thing that you'll do faster and double down on to become a better salesperson?
Connect with more people. I started that little late. Hear me out.
Elaborate. Yeah,
I am kind of, I don't know whether to put it on record or not. I'm kind of India's largest followed salesperson in India right now.
correct.
I have almost 6, 7 years of career, and 3 years I was completely off any social media, including LinkedIn.
Hmm.
And when I started writing about my journey, I started writing about people. That's how founders, CEOs, great VPs of sales started interacting with me.
Right.
That's how I started getting great jobs, great pay grade, and wherever I am. So I feel something over there is that keeping your head down and doing your work is something which has actually helped me. But I think networking with more people early in my career is something, if you allow me to go back in time, I would do, which any which ways has been covered up by now because of that
So,
active
and
posting.
here's what I would say to everyone. Shahzad has actually nailed something very unique to him. He has seen the fruits of his labor today, and he's now saying that if I could rewind, I would do something. I want each and every person to just, even if you're 21 years old, just ask yourself, what is it that you think you'd like to look like? And then reverse engineer backwards and say, what's that one thing you need to do today that will allow you to look like? Now, in Shahjad's case, he could not have foreseen at age 21 that I am going to be a LinkedIn most followed salesperson of India. No ways, Shahjad. I don't think that was an objective he came out with. But today, what he's saying is that based on where he is and because of the satisfaction he gets to it, he's looking back. Now, everyone would argue, but that's specific to Shahzad. It is. I would still say that people listening in, there's a very powerful message in saying, if you feel that you would really want to be someone that is followed, respected, understood, and a contributor to the sales environment in general, then start early, as he says, network. And I can also tell you something about Shahzad. Shahzad's network building skills are very unique. He is actually building an ecosystem that actually is symbiotic. It feeds each other. So if there's someone on this call who's going to tell me that I will only network so that I can get better jobs in the future, I can assure you your networking is about to fail. He's nodding
True.
his head. I can tell you that. So, Shahzad, let's keep going here. Now, if we forget where you are today and all the knowledge you've earned, in general, salespersons on the call that are starting their career at age 21, what's the single biggest thing you would tell them to focus on the most?
Discovery. Learn
Discovery.
and understand how to do better discovery calls. Very easy to say and very easy to hear, but I feel most even senior most experienced people I have seen doesn't know how to do a good discovery call, because of which either deal goes away or they are not able to bring the urgency into the call. From a technical point of view, this is something which I would like to tell anybody who's starting in sales: learn to do good discovery calls. Rest everything can be figured out, can be done. There are people to help you and support you, but when you go into a call and there's a first discovery level call, you cannot ask all the people in your organization to come and help you. It's you and your customer, either face to face or virtually. Learn to do this much better discoveries.
I would not argue against that because I think during an entire conversation, if you think about it, most of the virtues, most of the things you're talking about came from a discovery conversation because it forces you to what you call it active listening. It forces you to also stop thinking about the next step, focus on the moment. And a great discovery is actually exactly that. And once you identify pain, of course, then you take it from there. I also remember you saying that it's not just about following medic or medpic and so on. It's also about intuitively running this system and seeing what's going on and then changing course as necessary. Sir, I'd like to wrap up with a very simple question. What is INDOSALES? I mentioned it when we started, right? But I want to hear your perspective. What was the idea? What was the thought process? Where do you think it's going, and how can people, listeners on this call, kind of support your journey and what you're trying to do there in terms of growing that network?
So when I took up a managerial role, the people who started working with me started saying that, Shazad, we have worked with a lot of great sales people, but there are only few people who can teach what they are doing. And they said, we feel that you are a strong person who doesn't just do sales but also know how to teach it to people. So that's when they suggested me that, over weekends, why don't you start helping people who are in need? So on weekends, every Saturday, Sunday, I started networking with people. I started, helping people with how to do much better discovery, cold call, cold email, how to reach out, how to do negotiations and stuffs like that. And over a period of time, we became a WhatsApp group of somewhere around, 300, 400. And from word of mouth, word of mouth, word of mouth, today we are, as we are speaking to you on this particular date, we are around 6,000 people. Now, what is INDOSALES? INDOSALES is India's largest B2B sales community, starting from an intern, SDR, AE, manager, director, VP, CBO, and even founders of a lot of great organizations interact over there, hire people, refer people, get their questions resolved on live, on WhatsApp group, that hey, I have a deal today, and this is a scenario which I'm gonna face. Can anybody who has faced something similar help me out? Now those things are priceless. Now imagine you are just asking and going asking help always to your manager. Even your manager's knowledge will be limited. But when you ask to a crowd of 6,000 people, people with decades and decades of experience, people who
Yeah,
have been there, done that, you get a different perspective. So if I have to put it in a way, IndoSales is an ecosystem where you get everything about sales. Whether it is
got it.
hiring, whether it is jobs, whether it is about referral, whether it is about becoming a better salesperson, or whether it is just about coming and talking heart to heart about the difficulties that you're facing in this journey. It's an ecosystem that helps people, networks people, and connects people. And there's a person in the community who himself said, it's a place where good humans are doing good things to each other.
I agree with you. I've tasted that, and I would say to you that what I tasted sounds exactly and tastes exactly the way you just explained it. I appreciate that. As we kind of wrap up, one last question is, Shahzad, people looking to find you, how do we reach out to you? How do they find you? Where are you?
I'm the most accessible person, I would say. You can reach out to me either on LinkedIn or through WhatsApp. Probably LinkedIn will be a much better way of reaching out to me. I respond to people. There's a dedicated art, towards the night, where I sit and respond to people either on comments or through the DM. So yeah, that will be the best way to reach out to me, or to join into sales.
Yes. So what I'll do is that when the podcast comes out, I will be tagging you, Shahzad, in any case, so that people can at least start following you on LinkedIn. And from there, if someone wants to figure out more about Indo Sales, feel free to DM him. The man is responsive. I can vouch for that. Shahzad, I really appreciate the time that you spent with me. I really hope that listeners get more value, because I would say you've shared so much insights in there that I feel that people should actually get their hands on the transcript and read through that very carefully as well. I look forward to releasing this episode because one, this episode is one of those which I call is very formative for very new salespeople, and giving new salespeople the ability to actually understand things in a very different way, more powerful way, is the best way to accelerate their career. I really thank you for being with me, Shahzad.
It's an honor, Mr. Deepak, for having me here, and thank you so much. I'm also a big fan of your work. What you do for people and salespeople, and typically for any professional who are building their career. Thank you so much. It's a privilege and honor to sitting across the same table and having a conversation means a lot. And thank you so much.
No, I appreciate what you do, sir. Absolutely. Take care. Bye, everyone.